Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our City Commission study session. It is Tuesday, March 17th, 2020, St. Patrick's Day. Welcome to everybody. Please turn off or silence all cell phones during the study session. A reminder that study sessions and meetings are televised every day on Channel 2 at 7 p.m. and midnight and available for viewing on YouTube. Today we have 6 items on our agenda for the study session, but before we get to the first item, I'm going to turn it over to the city manager to give us a little bit of an update on COVID-19.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commission. Shortly before the meeting started tonight, the Leavenworth County Health Department issued some new directives. For those who are watching tonight or following online, I am going to take the time to read the 3 conditions that they've laid out as these take effect tonight at 12:01. And so I think it's important that the community be aware in these issues. The Leavenworth County Health Department, now therefore be it ordained by the local health officer pursuant to the above authorities that, number 1, all large public gatherings of people in the county are prohibited. Large gatherings are those with more than 10 people in attendance or anticipated to attend, both indoor and outdoor, except for healthcare facilities. A gathering does not include normal operations at spaces where persons may be in transit or coming and going individually or in groups of less than 10 persons. For all gatherings of people, the health officer strongly encourages everyone to follow guidance provided by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, for social distancing. Item 2, all restaurants, dining facilities, bars, taverns, clubs, and movie theaters in Leavenworth County, Kansas are hereby ordered to close to the public effective 12:01 a.m. on March 18th, 2020 until midnight on April 1st, 2020, except that any such establishments may continue to provide carryout, drive-through, and delivery of food, or where the establishment can maintain 10 or less persons within the proper social distance of 6 feet. In all areas, establishments must follow the guidance provided by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, federal, state, and local public health officials for social distancing and infection control measures. This order may be supplemented or modified as required for the effective and efficient management and control of the coronavirus epidemic in the county by further order or direction of the Leavenworth County Board of Public Health or by the Leavenworth County Local Health Officer. It is so ordered the 16th day of March 2020. This is a good entry into a quick rundown I'm going to give from the city, and that I can't answer questions on this. These declarations, these orders come from the Leavenworth County Health Department, from the Leavenworth County Health Officer. These are not city regulations. The city respects the actions taken by the Leavenworth County Health Department and will follow those, but we do not set these policies, nor am I able to answer questions about specific instances, as these are directives given by the Leavenworth County Health Department. So going on to some the city information that I prepared. I wanted to take a minute to talk about the unprecedented events of the last few weeks and how they have affected city government. The city is working hour by hour to follow and evaluate the ever-changing guidelines from the Centers for Disease Control, the state of Kansas, and the Leavenworth County Health Department, which is the local agency empowered with the response to this item. We are making decisions based on information provided by those entities and working to share that information with our residents. Often when a community faces something like a public emergency, they turn to local government for answers on everything from driver's licenses to when schools will reopen. Although those are not city functions, we understand those concerns and questions and will do our best to guide residents to the appropriate agency. In the case of a public health crisis, we work to support our Leavenworth County Health Department and do what we can with our services, such as refuse pickup, police and fire activity, running a wastewater treatment plant, continuing projects, etc., to minimize the disruption to our residents and our businesses. The message I want residents to hear is that although our facilities are closed to visitors, the city is open for business. We will hold scheduled meetings, although some of them might be done in a virtual space. Efforts to modernize city operations over the past couple years allows us to continue to process payments, accept registrations and licensing, building plans, and permits all online. Our work on road projects, stormwater projects, and parks projects remains fully intact and continuing. The second message I want to impart is that the conditions are ever changing, but the overarching directive I have given my staff is that with every decision we make, we're going to err on the side of helping our residents. We have soon-to-be bride and grooms anxiously waiting to see how long the community center will be closed. We have children preparing for baseball and softball seasons. Our residents are looking forward to coming back to our pools, our basketball courts, and to rejoining the groups that convene at the Riverfront Community Center. Our job is to share what we know, when we know it, and work to make responsible and prudent decisions. These collective activities are what bind a community together, and we will work to bring them back as soon as possible. Some more specifics related to city actions. The police chief has used his emergency authority to allow downtown restaurants to dedicate one on-street parking place for curbside pickup. We automatically reauthorized all participants in the elderly rebate program. Those who are in the program for 2019 do not need to reapply or bring documents to City Hall. We have extended dog licensing program deadline to April 30th. We will review and extend all registration deadlines as necessary and are committed to working with our residents, our contractors, and our vendors during this time. We have made internal operational modifications for the safety of our first responders, and the police and fire chiefs have done so in a way that we do not believe will jeopardize public safety. We have been and will continue to be active on our website and social media. We will answer the questions we can and explain where answers might be found to issues out of our control. This is an unprecedented event, and we are experiencing this the same way everyone else is, in anticipation of the next event, the next recommendation, and with the hope that our measures will hasten the return to normal life. I wanted to add 2 other frequently asked questions we get. The trash bag delivery for this part has been delayed. That is a function handled by the Lions Club, and I believe they're going to have some issues with the labor required to do that. The brush and recycle site are closed. Trash pickup, of course, is unaffected. And we have not made a decision on spring cleanup or some events that happen in mid to late April, and we will continue to update the public as those decisions are made. I did have the information from the governor on the education piece, but we do have the school superintendent scheduled tonight, so I'll let him handle that item, and that's all I have for the commission.
Okay, thank you for your comprehensive rundown, Mr. Kramer.
Do you want to mention that they can, if they do run out of trash bags now, they can pick them up? Can they pick them up, or is that not possible?
City facilities are closed, so they would
So
not
they
be
would
able
not be
to
able to
go
pick them
anywhere.
up.
Right, we're going to
Okay.
reserve those trash bags and try to send those out later in the year with another trash bag delivery.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comprehensive comments, Mr. Kramer. Let me just make a few comments, and then I'll let my fellow commissioners speak also. It is not often that we as Americans are asked to sacrifice for the greater good. This is one of those times, and our ability to do this will keep our city and community healthy, and in the final analysis, save lives. I don't underestimate the disruption to our lives that each and every one of us is beginning to experience. What we are going through is not normal, but Americans are known for their ability to adapt. So if each one of us can step up and be responsible, we will come out on the other side of this crisis better, both individually and collectively. I am cognizant of the economic difficulty that many of our citizens and businesses are going to experience, and my message is that the city manager and I and the commission will do everything we can possibly do to keep you abreast of legislation and guidance emanating from the federal government and guidance and policies from our state and county governing bodies. Our foremost thought as far as the mayor and the commission is the health, safety, and welfare of all our Leavenworth citizens in the days, weeks, and months ahead. So with that, Commissioner Wilson, do you have anything?
Yes, I just encourage everyone to pray for those individuals and family members who've been affected by this virus. And as a community, let's continue to support one another, help meet the needs of the citizens in our community, and just check on your neighbor. That's the main thing.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Leonhardt?
Yeah, it's just, this is a trying and disheartening time, to say the least. But we're trying to be proactive for the citizens, working together as a community to help us combat this invisible enemy.
Thank you. Commissioner Preisinger?
Yeah, this is, as the mayor said, a very trying time. At a minimum, this is going to be extremely inconvenient for residents of Leavenworth and citizens of this country. At a maximum, it's going to be economically devastating for a large number of people. We have to keep that in mind. We've got to do what we can individually to try to keep some people afloat. We have to keep the economy somehow moving, even though we are handcuffed somewhat. Once again, this is very serious, never before seen. It's not a hoax. It's not just a cold. It's not a time to just relax, but not a time to panic either. It's common sense and follow advice of medical professionals, I think, is mandated for everyone. Do not follow advice that you see on some social media, like Alex Jones's toothpaste. If anyone knows who Alex Jones is, they've cut him down. He's selling toothpaste that would cure it. Other people say you mix turmeric and a couple other spices in a hot pot, that'll cure it. That's bogus. All the medical professionals are knocking that down. Or you see posts that says, my cousin's, aunt's, neighbor's, mailman's wife says this happened yesterday in New York. Isn't that terrible? Don't give any attribution to that. The death rate on this is much higher than H1N1. Total number of deaths much lower, but those that have gotten it, the death rate is extremely high, 20 times plus the rate of other flus. I believe that they will find something to counteract this at some time, but I don't see it in the very near future. You see the updates from the medical professionals, from the CDC, World Health Organization, whoever else, the guy that's really getting famous now, Dr. Fauci. He's been in this business for over 40 years, for approximately 40 years. I think they know what they're talking about. Let's do what we need to do. We've got, I think, most of the states and national government kind of on the same page now. We're getting daily briefings by people in the know, and I think it's time to take heed and do what we can do. And it's going to be a tough time, but we can make it through it. Thank you.
Commissioner Bowder?
My son and daughter-in-law were just laid off this afternoon. I know this is hard for everybody, but it is temporary, and we need to keep that in mind, and we need to not panic. It's a good time for us to stop and think about our lives and our family and the importance of everything. We rush around so much all the time. One of the things that I work for United Way, and one of the things I'm doing is updating the 211 referral service that refers people to the places where they're needed, and making sure that all those agencies are able to provide that help before they're referred there. So we all have something we can work on to try to help out, and I think if we help out each other, we'll do well. And happy St. Patrick's Day. I wear my green today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think there will be abundant opportunities for people to step up and be responsible and also be a leader, and in some cases, maybe even be heroic in one way, shape, or form to help our fellow citizens. So with that, we'll ask Superintendent Mike Roth to come up, and we'll get his update to the quarterly update to the City Commission. Hello, Dr. Roth.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity to come and share with you this evening. The first thing that I would like to state is that it's very much appreciated as a citizen of this community to have the leadership in this room, and talking with Mr. Kramer, the ideas and what you are putting in place and what you're displaying tonight is exactly what we need. So thank you for that leadership. Thank you for that commitment to all the citizens of our community. As Mr. Kramer mentioned, today at roughly 4:15, the governor declared all school districts in the state of Kansas to cease operations as they currently are. It's not canceling education in the state of Kansas. What we're having to do is look at education through a different lens and give education to the best of our abilities on a different platform. Those platforms were spelled out for us today, and more information will be coming on that. One of the ideas is to do like a paper packet, where like when your students, if you remember when your children were in school, if they did have the flu, teachers would create a packet. You would, as a parent, would come by, pick that up, take it home, and let the kids do the work, and then return that. That's one option. An online platform is another option. But one of the things that's going to be difficult with the online platform is not all of our kids have a device. The school has enough devices for all of our kids, K through 12. What we don't, or what we can't assure, is that every kid has an opportunity to get on that device through internet at home. There are providers that are trying to reach out and do some things, but that doesn't mean the families have to take advantage of that, okay? So one of the obstacles in the online platform is making sure that each family has an opportunity for internet connection. So that two-way communication through Zoom or Google Classrooms or those types of things can take place. And then the third one is face-to-face in groups of 10 or less. The idea on that is teachers can carve out an hour, hour and a half where a group of students can come in groups of 10 or less, but then you have the burden put back onto the families of getting those kids to and from. Transportation from a school standpoint would be almost impossible to transport all day long different areas, and that just logistically would be very difficult. So what we're doing as a school district, this was the first phase of what was shared with us today, along with the rest of Kansas, that we had a small briefing prior to the governor making that announcement so we could start thinking through some things. One of the things for us, fortunately this week, we were on spring break, so our custodian crew and our maintenance crew could go through each building with a thorough cleaning and making sure we're getting that deep clean going and done. I'm bringing our principals back on Friday, or actually Thursday. We're going to meet Thursday and have a meeting to start talking through the plan and what we can do and how we want to get teachers' input and start that process. So what the state has done is said this week is for deep cleaning, next week is for preparation, and then the 30th would be implementation of whatever educational platform you decide, or if it's a combo of that, that's what we'll roll out. The difficulty in this is the communication with families, right? It's hard to explain in writing or on social media or those types of things, the complexity that we're dealing with. However, with limits of 10 or less, it's almost impossible to have enough meetings to cover the material that you have. So we'll be communicating with families through our social platforms, through snail mail, through those types of things, to give them as much information and as much comfort level as we can. We'll also have, most likely, we'll have each buildings reaching out, trying to reach them either through telephone or conversation somehow, because the communication is going to be critical in this piece. As you said, transparency and being out in front, that's the same thing that we'll be looking for from a school district to our families. Our most prized possession is not going to be in our buildings for the remainder of this school year. But with that, our goal is to give them as much education opportunities as we possibly can. Whatever plan the board finally approves early next week, we will push forward. We'll get the state, Kansas State Department of Education's approval of that, because that's one of the requirements for the waiver. Two elements of the waiver that I think is very important for people to understand is that we are not going to withhold any payment or any thing that's been budgeted for our employees. So our custodians, our food service employees, our maintenance people, our paraeducators, all of our hourly people, we will find stuff for them to do to where they can earn that paycheck and stay whole for what they were anticipating on when they started with us. Teachers will be expected to prepare lesson plans, work with students via online, via telephone calls, Zoom meetings, whatever that platform looks like, they'll be required to continually to do the best they can with that. Are there going to be struggles with this? 100%. Are we going to do things differently than we've ever done before? 100%. Do I think we're going to be successful? I absolutely do, because I think I've got tremendous teachers, tremendous administrators, along with great support people that support them in all ways in this school district. The thing that we've all said as growing up, right? If we're going to fail, let's fail forward. This is an opportunity to fall forward as much as we can and possibly learn new ways to educate kids, give kids different ideas, and let them see that the world doesn't always have to be here, it can be out wide. And that's gonna be our goal in this. We're gonna do the best we can. And I look forward to the partnership with our community as we move through these trying times. But as a community, with the city's leadership, with the school, our military families and things like that, we can definitely grow forward as a community, and I'm excited about that piece. It's very stressful and challenging, but it's also, if we do it right, we can grow, and good things can happen from that.
It sounds like you're going to have to adapt and that you've set the conditions to do that, and that's one of the things that I mentioned, and Americans are very, very good at doing that. So any way that we, as a city commission and the city manager, can help the school district, please let us know. I know it's gonna end up being a very, very positive experience. I do have one question. This is the time of year that the state has its assessments, its annual assessments that go on. Did they mention anything today about assessments?
Yes, the state assessments will be waived for this school year.
That's good, yeah.
Yes.
That's good. Questions or comments for Dr. Roth from my fellow commissioners?
No.
No.
It's a challenging time for me.
Yeah, it is challenging, yeah.
I probably don't have the answer to this yet, but I know there's a large number of percentage of children that are on free and reduced lunches. And, during the summer, you have those open lunch places. Obviously, we can't have that now. I'm sure there's not a plan in place right now, but that has to be on your radar too.
Right,
How you
and
gonna handle it.
that's a great question, and it's actually something that we've gave a lot of consideration to today. And actually, we started this conversation last week as we have anticipated some type of closure, maybe not this soon, but eventually. And one of the things that we talked about is opening a couple different sites in our buildings for grab and go or curbside. And those are two options that the state has also approved and the federal government's also approved to be able to fund those. And not only from just our school age kids, but anyone 1 year to 18 years of age can participate in that. The caveat to that is, and this is gonna be the trick part, is that our people that are serving those lunches can't deliver them to an adult. They have to be able to see the child that they go to in order to deliver that.
Right.
And so I can't send one adult person to pick up 15 lunches for my kids, even though I may know they're going there. We can't do that. So that's going to be a challenge to work through, but we are, it will be my, or not my idea, but I see that plan working out to where we have at least 2 sites open for grab-and-go lunches for our students and families within our community.
Backpack buddies, are they in the thought process?
We haven't reached out with Backpack Buddies yet. Everything's so new and there's a lot of things in play.
Yeah, they take a lot of volunteers too.
Right, and we won't necessarily commit to that one way or the other. It would be my hope that we would be able to continue somewhat of that, but there's a lot of pieces moving with large groups having to get together to pack those bags. If not, there's one thing that our food service director from the state has done a nice job, is we could possibly do a couple meals on Friday to take home, if nothing else. And so I just want to commend our state commissioner, Dr. Watson, our state school board, our legislation, our governor, everybody working together. These are all tough decisions, and it's decisions that no one, I think, took lightly. I think they make decisions based on what's best for the state as a whole. The thing that this is important for the state of Kansas, and especially K-12 education, and Mr. President, you talked earlier about, these aren't hoaxes or things like that. There's data out there that says 18-year-olds and down are less likely to display the symptoms necessary. But what people have got to continue to understand are teachers. We have teachers that are 25 years old, and we have teachers that are 65 years old. We have custodians that are older than that. We have to protect them as well. And so this was a decision that was made out of the better good of everyone. We have teachers and administrators that were called to the state to work on the plan, the continuing education plan. And I truly believe by tomorrow night, they'll have some ideas and some framework that we can steal from. And again, it won't be seamless, but we'll do our best to make it that.
So suffice it to say, over the next 2 weeks, you and your staff will be fairly busy. Your spring break just got canceled.
We talked about the phone calls and things that are going to come through, but again, I think the transparency and the communication is the one thing that we can all do in this, and we'll do our best to try to answer as many questions when they come up. And it's going to be a change, absolutely. But again, we talked as a staff today that we're going to deal with some challenging times, but we got to stay confident with what we do and believe what we're doing is right for kids.
Thank you.
Dr. Roth, just very quickly, so no more school for the rest of the school year, but the intermediate level education facility, could you just give a little bit of an update on that, please?
Yeah, you've seen this week and the last week, Mother Nature's thrown us another curveball with all the moisture. One of the things that we were really going to struggle with is getting that lane in that was required for the fire service. We were going to be pressing the 23rd as a start. Matter of fact, we were already making some contingency plans for the 30th. And so now, naturally, that process can play itself out without having to rush in and rush out. It'll also give our staff opportunity to move in and kind of get acclimated with the facilities, both our 5th grade and 6th grade. And this will allow us to call and do some educational things via online platforms so teachers can start getting used to maybe some delivery models in the future as kids do have some illnesses and things like that. And so this will give us some time to really use it to hopefully help us slow down education and all the changes, but also teach education and all the changes to our staff.
Thank you. And the plan for the Early Childhood Education Center for school year 2021, is that still going to go forward?
Yes. We were scheduled to turn that building over to them June 1, and we should not have any trouble meeting that date.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Dr. Roth? No. Thank you very much. Best
Thank
to
you
you
all,
and
and good
your
luck.
teachers and classified staff.
And stay healthy, everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, you too.
We are going to move to development regulations amendments as the next agenda item.
Mr. Mayor and Commission, I just wanted to make the quick note for anybody following along with the agenda online. The public library was supposed to be next. Their director is unable to be here tonight. He sends his regrets for that, and we'll make it up as soon as we can, but he was unable to make it.
Thank you.
The next 4 items tonight are handled by our Planning and Community Development Director, Julie Hurley, to give the commission some updates.
Hello, Ms. Hurley.
Okay, hello. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. So yeah, this is our annual update to our development regulations. Our Planning Commission did review these at their March 2nd Planning Commission meeting, so we're just here to give you an update on these. These are just kind of procedural updates that we come across as we're using these regulations throughout the year. It's a fairly long document that, we don't always use every single part of it every day, and so as things come up, we always find things that we can do better or modify or just kind of, change a little bit and tweak to improve the way our development process runs. So that's what these are tonight. And I won't go through each of them. You've had the chance to read them. I'll just hit a couple of the more major ones. The first one that I'll just point out, in our use standards in regards to what we call agricultural buildings, the point of having a provision for agricultural accessory buildings is really to allow larger accessory structures on those larger lots in town that are 2 acres or larger for folks who might have a lot of land that they're taking care of and need equipment to do that, larger equipment to do that, tractors or brush hog or something. or for people who have a large enough piece of land that they have animals on their property that they need to shelter, have equipment for those animals. So the way the regulations are written right now, they are limited as to the size that they can go up to. And so we are proposing to change that so that they could go up to a maximum of 3,000 square feet. Previously it had been 1,200 square feet. And so they would be allowed to go up to 3,000 square feet a maximum. And it would be 2% of the size of the lot. So just for example, someone with a 2-acre lot would be allowed a 1,700 square foot agricultural accessory building. And then cap that at 3,000 square feet. So again, these are just lots that are over 2 acres. So again, those larger lots, to allow them to have a little bit more room to work with on those. Another one that I wanted to hit is adding language to allow for the keeping of apiaries or beehives in residential areas. And this is something that the commission talked about a couple of times last year, and there were a number of residents who had a pretty strong interest in this, and so we looked at some language to allow for those. We took the language from some other cities that the commission did review back in the fall and sort of came up with some regulations of our own to allow for those in residential areas. One thing that the planning commission did have a question about is if we should include some sort of provision that would require notification of neighboring property owners. The other cities we looked at didn't have a provision for notification of neighboring property owners, but that is something that the planning commission did just kind of bring up as something that we might want to consider just as we move forward with that. But we did want to get some language in there to allow for the apiaries in residential areas.
If we decided to do that, would it be the staff's responsibility to notify the neighbors, or?
And that would be something to look at when we have public hearing items right now, so rezoning, special use permits, those types of things that are required by Kansas statute for us to notify. The staff does provide those notifications. So if we wanted to provide notification for apiaries, I would imagine that staff would probably send those out just so we would have a consistent language that would be going out on these. And so that would be, we would have to decide if we wanted to just notify neighboring property owners or property owners within a certain radius.
Sure.
But that is something that if the commission wanted us to take a look at, that we could draft some language so that when this comes back to you for final approval, we could have some language in there to consider that it might be something that we would do.
Do any of my fellow commissioners have any comments about that, Commissioner
Yeah,
Price?
just a quick question on apiaries. Are you saying they're required an SUP?
Then no, they do not.
I would think.
So if
well,
you have
my
chickens-
thoughts are that maybe an SUP be required, so the neighbors are notified. Then we know the neighbors are notified, because it is a change. And in some people, it may be an issue. That's
Depends
all.
on how many, okay. Yeah, we can talk about that later. Anyway, if you have like chickens, do you have to notify your neighbors that you have chickens?
No.
Okay. See,
I'd just be
I don't see
concerned
any
about,
reason to.
a lot of children and that have bee allergies and that.
Yeah, and we did the language that staff drafted. It is in your packet. There are provisions for, the distance that they have to be from
Right.
neighboring properties.
Right.
If they're within a certain distance of a sidewalk or a public right-of-way, there would be a provision to provide, a vertical screen,
Vertical
like
screen.
the
Yeah.
expert that
Okay.
had spoken, talked
yeah.
about, so.
Pretty safe
So if they follow all the rules, I don't see any need to
to do.
do
Yeah, the only,
anything else.
I think
We're
once
not
we get,
requiring it of chickens, and I don't think we should need to.
but
require it.
once we get steady state, I would agree with that, but I think that since it is a change, I mean, I remember us discussing it last
Right.
year, so, I don't know, could you draft some language
Yep,
and
well,
then
we
come
can
back?
come up
So-
with a couple of different language
Right.
options, and so we can present those
Sure.
to the planning commission when they take their vote on these in April, and then that will be coming back
Okay.
to this board to make a final approval on, so we'll come up with a couple of options
All
for
right.
language on that, so.
Thank you.
When, Ms. Hurley, I remember was it the person from K-State or the Apiary Society, or
Yeah.
K-State, they told us all those things, and there were some slight concerns, not great concerns, but I don't think anyone asked, aren't there some incidents in the state of Kansas where pets got swarmed by some bees and, things like that happen in
I think she did know of a couple.
But you didn't mention it during that meeting. We didn't ask because we didn't know
Yeah,
that.
I think from talking with her, it sounds like it's a pretty rare
Yeah.
occurrence. And from my understanding, the information she had given us, bees aren't typically an aggressive animal. And I think the one incident that she had mentioned was a dog had been chained outside and was unable to get away from some
Yeah.
bees that it had disturbed or something like that. But I don't think it's
Okay.
a common occurrence
Okay.
that she was aware of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The next one that I wanted to hit, this is something that's come up several times over the past year. For our home occupations, right now, our standards require that no home occupation can have a separate outside entrance, and that no home occupation can be conducted in an accessory structure, so like a detached garage or a shed. And this is something that's come up a few times. There are a number of home occupations that we do allow by right, that could make sense being conducted in an accessory structure. We actually had one just go for a variance recently that was a small engine repair business, things like lawnmowers, leaf blowers, that type of thing, and they had specifically constructed a detached garage to conduct that business. It's an allowed business, it makes sense to have it in a detached structure, so they did get that variance approved. So we would just propose that home occupations could be allowed in an accessory structure with issuance of a special use permit. So for those instances where it might make sense, they would have that avenue to apply for that approval without having to go through a variance procedure to allow for that. And then another one that I wanted to hit, we added a definition for an adult day center.
I like
This
that
is
term
one that I
better.
know
That's
y'all
better.
are familiar with.
Yep.
And we wanted to be sensitive in coming up with language for
That's
it,
good.
so I hope that kind of
It sounds
hits
better
that
than
mark.
daycare.
Yeah, so
Day
we-
center, yes.
I looked at a number of other cities and how they classify that particular use. It's one of those things where every city handles it a little bit differently, calls it a little bit something different. There wasn't a consistent way in addressing that type of use. So the definition that we came up with, it's kind of a hybrid of a number of them that I found, so I'll just go ahead and read that. So an adult day center would be any place or facility operating less than 24 hours a day, providing activities and social engagement opportunities for not more than 15 unrelated adult individuals who, due to functional impairment, require some degree of supervision or assistance with the activities of daily living with no on-site medical services provided. So we're trying to keep it general enough that it would accommodate a variety of uses, but still specific enough that we're kind of hitting what we want.
I think it's a very good description, definition, and I don't want to seem too pedantic, and I knew we took out the word care, which is good, so it's adult day center. Is there any way we could, do we need the word day in there? Could we put something like services or enrichment or something like that, rather than using the word day?
We could,
I know it's not daycare, but there's still, when you first read it,
But
it's
you're
still.
leaving it open more. I mean, enrichment, yeah, you're leaving it open more to other things too, by having it just say adult day center. I think you'd be,
so it's
be
sort of
more
indicating
general.
that the services are provided during the day hours. It's not an overnight facility.
It's
That
not,
was
right,
more the goal of
specific.
the
Right.
wording for that language. So, and then just the last thing that I wanted to hit was, the zoning districts where we're going to allow those adult day centers. We had put it in there to allow them, initially just by right in any residential district. Planning Commission questioned whether or not maybe we should require a special use permit for those, since some other similar uses do require special use permits in a residential district. Just so, again, we're making sure that it is an appropriate location for it. Like the one that we had just come through, it is going in on a church facility in an old school building. That location absolutely makes sense for it. Every residential location may not be the right spot for it, so just make it an allowed use with that special use permit, just so that we're making sure that we can review and make sure that there's, proper things, proper parking and just proper, access and facilities for that type of use.
That's a good idea.
So, so those are the main ones that I wanted to hit. If you have any other questions, I can certainly answer those. But again, the plan going forward would be to have these go back to the April 6th Planning Commission meeting. They'll take final action on that. And that, as I said, for the ones that we talked about before, I'll have some alternative language to talk about for a couple of these things for them to consider. And then they will come back to this board at a meeting for you to take final action on, and then we'll get those implemented and start using them.
Sounds good.
Any other questions or comments from Ms. Hurley? If not, do we have a consensus to move forward with the adoption of proposed text amendments?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Next is the Land Bank Program Review.
Okay, so this is just an update on where we are with the land bank program. I know we've talked about this a few times, it's been a little while, but we just wanted to bring this back to make sure that we're keeping it moving forward. So just to kind of recap, land banks, they're established through Kansas state statute, so that legal mechanism is there to establish them. And what they really do is act as a legal and financial mechanism to transform vacant and abandoned properties, back into productive use. And so the purpose of a land bank for us would be to take possession of vacant residential properties that they're beginning to have a blighting influence on the neighborhood, and really get those turned around before they would be eligible for a demolition list. Every year when we're going through our list of properties that may be eligible for demolition, there's always a few that we think, gosh, they're really not that bad. We wish we could just get them to somebody who could fix them up so that we could get them back into use and get somebody living back in them. Typically what the problem with those properties are, and the reason nobody's picked them up, is because they have a complicated title. And in order to get that hold of that property, you have to get a hold of the owner, get a clear title, get possession of it. A lot of these properties have owners who have passed away, otherwise moved on and can't be located. And so that's really what's holding a lot of these up. So this land bank process would allow the city to work with the county to clear those titles. The city would take possession of the property. When it's vacant, we'd get that clear title. And then we would be able to get those properties into the hands of individuals who would be contractually obligated with the city to fix it up. We would sell them to them. They would fix it up, and then they would be able to resell those to homeowners for their own profit, to get them back on the tax rolls, get somebody living in them, and just remove that blight from the neighborhood. So, we never want to tear down properties if we don't have to, so we feel like this is a good alternative to some of those houses that may not quite be at that level that we can hopefully get back in good shape. So, what we've done, staff has worked to come up with policies and procedures for a land bank. And so our next steps right now, if the commission would like to move forward with this, is we would need to have the policies and procedures kind of reviewed by our legal staff to make sure we're kosher on all of that, and that we've crossed all the T's and dotted all of our I's. We would need to secure a commitment for funds to start up the land bank process. There's not a lot of upfront cost with these, but there is a little bit in terms of legal notification, pulling title work, that type of thing. So from our research, we would think that initial expenses would be less than $5,000 to get it up and running. Once it's up and running and we're selling these properties back into the hands of folks, it would be self-funding. So it would really just be that upfront investment. And then we would need approval of an ordinance formally establishing a land bank board of trustees who would be in charge of managing that land bank process. So going forward, those are our steps, assuming the commission would still like us to move forward with this. I know we've got our goal setting and budgeting sessions coming up, so we will plan to get this into those discussions so that we can hopefully get this going here within the next 12 months.
Sounds good.
How many board of trustees do you think you'd have on the board?
It
or
just
is this-
depends. We've been talking with a few other cities. There's different options for setting it up. You can use an existing city commission or planning commission to do it. There are drawbacks to that in terms of privacy and conflicts of interest. And so we would be looking at the best alternative for us to do that. But I would imagine it'd be, not a huge board, but we'll be looking at those details as we
Too,
move forward.
okay. Thank you.
I got a question. So once the city take ownership of the house, how will you determine the cost of the house, to selling the property?
I'm honestly not sure of that. I'm not sure how we would set that up if it's, Mary might know. Do you know the other cities have done it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let Mary answer that.
Some of the other cities have done that as a bid process. And so what they do is they have a list of properties and they'll take bids on those, and then that's considered by the Land Bank Board of Trustees, whether that bid is going to be accepted. And they'll have a period of time that they'll accept those. And then after that, then it'll just be on the list for somebody to bid for. So it's not really a set price, it's what the market will bear.
Thank you, appreciate it.
The ultimate goal, of course, is get these things occupied back on the tax rolls. And in the past, when we had that, what were those grants we had that, 8, 9, 10 years ago, what?
Yeah.
Neighborhood
Community-
stabilization.
Stabilization
Neighborhood
Fund, Community
stabilization.
Development Block.
We'd buy
under-
let's say we'd buy a property, some of it we'd knock down, say that we had $8,000 in it, then we built the house for $70,000, whatever it might be. I don't know that we ever would sell it for $78,000 then, because we had that much in it, but we would try to do that. Yeah, and this is probably getting too much in the weeds, but if we would do that, let's say buy a property for $5,000, and I'm grabbing a number here, then you have to put in $30,000 worth of repairs. Would we establish a reserve price, and you can bid on it, but we would have it in our pocket, say, we're not gonna accept anything under, or is our ultimate goal, if $1 is the highest bid, take it, get it back on the tax rolls?
I believe in that, you can correct me, that we actually sell it when it's in its dilapidated condition. We put it out to bid, so say
Oh, we're not gonna fix it up?
Joe's
We're not
homeowner.
fixing it up.
Okay,
Right.
I misunderstood.
And then
that.
they're able to sell it
Yeah,
on the
that's where
market.
this is different.
And
than
we're,
what we do.
and we're not buying them either. The way the state statute is set up, and Mary can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we would need to buy them. Is that
Generally, the
correct?
way that it works is that we will approach someone on whether or not they want to donate it to the land bank. And the reason they'd want to do that is to get out from under oftentimes the taxes have accumulated on
Sure.
that. And a land bank by statute is allowed to have the county waive those. And so it kind of gets them free and clear of the property, whereas if they continue to be the owner, they're still responsible for the upkeep, the mowing, the
Yeah, I understand.
taxes
No,
and so forth.
no, I think-
So
Yeah.
generally, the process is a donation.
Yeah, and I think it's an outstanding program, especially when it works as designed. The only, and I don't know if this will happen, a concern would be, let's say, property A, we have it, and we get it land banked in here, but we try to get people that might be interested in building houses for or repairing a house for 3 years, we're going, we can't get anybody, and the house goes further and further down. Once it's in the land bank, can we ever
Yes, we
throw up
can.
our hands and say, we gotta bulldoze it? We can't, okay.
We can.
That's fine, that's fine. But no, it's a great program.
So.
We
And I
can,
will
we just hope not to.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
understand.
And I will just kind of note too, we're working on our list of demolitions, our next one that will be coming before you all here shortly. Out of that list that we've identified, we had 5 that we identified as more appropriate for a land bank. Properties that look to be in fairly good condition. They've been abandoned for a number of years. We've been mowing them, maintaining them. There's nobody living there.
Good.
We don't want to tear them down, and so we're hopeful that we can get something like this going where we can, kind of get them turned around.
Well, this is another tool in the toolbox,
Yeah.
right, as far as dealing with blight, and I think, it minimizes the risk to the city too, but we're able to accomplish, improvements as far as the appearance and the image of the city, which is good. Now, assuming that you get consensus from the commission here, when would you come, you're gonna come back for like an ordinance approval for us, when
Yep.
would that be approximately?
So what we'll do, and I'll have to kind of
Right,
hash that out with Paul, I would think we would come back in the goal setting and make sure that we nail down what we think an initial cost is going to be,
Okay.
so that we can get that in the budget process for 2021. Again, it's gonna be a fairly minimal cost, we think under $5,000. but that will have to be accounted for. And then, yeah, have, the city attorney work with us to make sure we get an ordinance drafted correctly, get that land bank board of trustees established, and then, yeah, come back before you all with
So we're
an ordinance. So
talking-
hopefully by the end of the year, we can have, that established so that once we're into 2021, with a new budget year, we can get rolling with it.
But in terms of those 5 properties, if we agree, once that list comes in front of us, would be able to move forward in 2020?
No, we actually, the ones that we've identified, we won't be bringing them to
Oh,
you
okay.
right now.
I
Those
see.
are, we're just gonna kind of
Okay.
hold them in our back pocket until we have
Okay.
this up and running.
I understand that, all right. So do we have a consensus to move forward with this land bank program?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Next is public transportation review.
Mary's gonna handle that. I'm gonna let Mary have the hot seat.
Lucky Mary.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here to talk, I guess it's a good evening of talking about challenges. So this is the challenge of public transportation. We've been working on public transportation since 2017, when we received a grant from Mark to do a study for Leavenworth County. And we looked at possibilities for transportation. 2018, the city commission at that time said that they would fund a portion of that, half, and wanted the county to match. And the county at that time was unable to make that commitment at that time. So the process of looking at transportation for the city of Leavenworth kind of went back to the drawing board. Commissioner Bowder called a couple of meetings with a wide variety of people to discuss the current study and to look at what might be a future possibility. And what boiled up out of that was perhaps just focusing on the city of Leavenworth as the first pass and in public transportation, and then going forward from there. So there were meetings after that to discuss how that might work with KCATA and with KDOT. They both had great input on how that might work. We got involved with the Guidance Center, who currently does a transportation route for their own people, and was a possibility for running a city public transportation program. So at that point, that's where we were about. KDOT has 2 grants that you can apply for, one for operational funds and one for capital improvement, or capital funds. And they come around once a year, so that's in November. So last November, we kind of started to look at that process, and then thought we needed to take a moment and look at whether or not that was something that the commission wanted to set as a goal, about the funding for that, and that's kind of where we're at this point. The 2 grants that are available, one from KDOT, one is an 80% grant, 20% match for operations, and the other is the capital grant, which is a 70% grant and 30% match. So with the really rough prelim that we did in November, last November, the funds for that came out to about, little over $50,000. So if the city wanted to meet the challenge of doing public transportation, we would need to have that as a goal, and also in the budget process. So I think that's kind of where we are right now. If you have questions, I'd be glad to answer.
I do have some questions, but I'm first gonna turn it over to Commissioner
Okay.
Bowder to.
Excellent.
The total cost for having, and it depends on what kind of transportation system you have. There are a variety of things you could have, and the more expensive, it goes anywhere from $200,000 to $400,000 a year total, with all the grants and everything. But all that depends on whether you run once an hour, whether you run half an hour, whether you run a fixed route, whether you run more of an Uber type situation for parts of the city. And so there's a lot of things to look at. Before you want to ask, and there's groups that have already been meeting on this, and I get called to speak at, I've been called to speak at just about every major organization in the Leavenworth County area about this. Getting the county on board, I think the other cities basically want to see what we do before they jump on. But each one of them, each one of the cities were there at those meetings and talked about their need for transportation and their need to get to the doctor's office at the Legends, to get to work, to get to work in Leavenworth, and for, different things. Now, there are so many things that you'll need to think of. I mean, if this goes on, and I hope it does, but after it goes through, like I said, people have been meeting to discuss this. Who will ride it, who will run it, how will it be buses, vans, how it will be structured, staff, insured, how will it be paid for otherwise. In the Kansas City Area Transit Authority, which runs all the Kansas City area and outlying areas too, they have a nonprofit organization as part of their system, and that nonprofit helps different entities as far as rides and stuff. There are school districts that help pay for some of the transportation. There are Kansas City, Kansas Community College helps pay for it. There's a veterans program where veterans ride free, and millions of rides have gone on because of the Veterans Ride Free program in the greater Kansas City area. How many services are being provided by entities of the county so that we can all work together to get this going? They want to see what's happening in Leavenworth. I would love to see a pilot program start. And all of this information would have to be gathered before any program would even be started or any proposal. Many communities have or are looking at innovative ways to move forward into the future. Public-private partnerships with a nonprofit component, I think, is important for a transportation system. As an economic engine, we need to provide this benefit to current and future employers. If we want our community to grow in the greater Kansas City, the majority of rides are employees going to and from work. I ask that you consider putting this on the study session, on our budget session, and consider a pilot program for a year or two. And with ATA's and MARC's guidance, Mid-America Regional Council's guidance, and great experience in innovative transportation options. If after that time we see there's no need, we drop the contract with little investment. The reason I say that is because if we rent the buses, if we work with ATA, we can do it however we want to, but we don't have that initial investment of buying our own buses and then having them if we don't need them. So I know that Sister Vicky's had a group together, and they discussed the Sisters of Charity buying some buses and things like that. But I really think to start out with, it would be good to have good guidance and have a good quality system going forward. So it is my hope that you would consider moving into the future with this.
Okay.
Quick question, Commissioner Bowder. I know the streetcar in Kansas City is free. Are all the buses in Kansas City and Joco now free?
They're going to that, yes.
Yeah, they are.
And that's just in the Kansas City area. It's not necessarily Johnson County. They do their own.
Oh, they're not
Wyandotte
connected?
County, well, they lease from
routes
each other.
are.
The routes are connected,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
But they lease from each other, so they're actually separate entities. The counties are separate entities and run their own bus system. So they do what they want to. Some don't charge anything. Kansas City proper does not, is going to where they're not charging anything for rides.
Well, I know if there's a reliable public transportation option available, it will get used. It has to.
I think it
This
will.
option would be within the city, within the
Within the
city
city.
of Leavenworth.
Because we don't have any,
Right.
right now, we don't have any support from the county.
Right.
Yeah.
And they've said they wanted to wait on that, and the different cities have told me the same thing, their administrators.
And I guess that would be something we would decide in the study if we would charge or it would be free.
Well, that would have to be, I think the city would have to, Mr. Kramer, you might mention this, the city would have to
Run some options.
Yeah, it's
Right?
yeah.
it's a
Well,
bit of a
the
chicken
study-
and an egg thing about how
Yeah.
much do you allocate up front when
Right.
you, because you're allocating it before you go through the grant process. But you allocate enough essentially for a more robust system. And, you know, I guess then it would be, we could do something about if it was a little bit scaled down system, maybe the rest of those funds could be used for some sort of subsidization of fares or something like that. But we
Right.
certainly get into that.
Well, the nonprofit component helps with that, the
Yeah.
fares too.
Right,
The
right.
$3.20 a ride is a bit high. And I
I
don't,
thought-
but
yeah, I
I,
thought so
and I
too.
don't think, but I think there are organizations here in the community that have expressed an interest in supporting transportation, and that nonprofit component has been a good thing for companies providing locations, providing land to build a stop on, you know, and things like that, so you don't have to have that expense as well as part of your plan, so.
Those are good details to know about. I appreciate that rundown. Any other, Commissioner Wilson, anything?
Excellent job. Yeah,
Right.
I have to say, I'm curious to, you know, to see
Would
what
the
folks do.
riders be, well, veteran, it wouldn't just be seniors, right? I mean, it would be.
Oh,
Any-
no.
anybody.
No,
Right.
anybody,
Anybody.
anybody, and that's been the situation with the county transportation,
Right,
thing.
it's focused
I
on-
wouldn't even touch that,
Yeah.
that's their own entity, they do a great job with that.
Right.
And they serve a lot of people, but I think for right here in the city, we would see a lot more than just elderly people
Sure, right,
riding.
right.
So question,
Yeah.
now would this be going back and forth to the Legends or just within the
Just
city?
within the city at
Okay,
this time.
okay. City.
Okay,
And in the future idea would be, if it goes well, to expand it.
okay.
And that all depends on, I mean, Lansing, if they want to come on, and then there would be a stop in Lansing
I got you.
and one coming from Basehor. I mean, that's the way, the plan that the study they did, yeah. But I have to thank Mary for doing all this work and putting this in a format
Right.
that's no problem, understandable for everybody.
Yes, and thank you for holding those meetings. I did go to one of them, but you've had a lot more than one, I know
Yeah.
that, so,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
progress is being made, and that's, much appreciated. So, do I have a consensus among the commissioners to include transportation, move forward with this in goal setting and budget process for 2021?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll do that. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you,
Dwyer.
Mary.
Next is comprehensive plan update. Gonna have, Ms. Hurley back in the hot seat.
There's-
Not really.
Not really.
Yes, musical chairs. So we just wanted to give you a quick update on where we're at with the comprehensive plan. I know everybody's kind of anxious to get this process going, and probably haven't seen a lot of movement, but we have been doing a lot, behind the scenes, so just kind of wanted to let you know where we're at with it. So back in December, we entered into the contract with Shockey Consulting to update our comprehensive plan. Since then, we have completed the phase one of the plan, which is their project launch portion. So that included a kickoff meeting with, the consultants and our city staff. We've approved a project management plan and a work plan, project management tool. And we've approved, the logo and branding scheme for the entire project moving forward. It will be used throughout, all the public engagement and then our final product. So right now, we're in the phase two, which is the discovery portion of the project. So right now, the consultant, they're reviewing all sorts of existing plans and data that we provided them with, getting a good idea of where we're at and where we've been. And then as part of this phase, we will be setting up some opportunities for the consultant to conduct one-on-one interviews with the commissioners. I know that was something that we'd asked them to add based on your all request. And so here shortly, we will be getting some dates from them. Those will be phone interviews, maybe GoToMeeting or some other online.
If we could do go-to-meeting
format,
or
yeah.
Zoom or something like that.
Yeah,
I think that
they'll
would
be,
good.
they'll be setting something up. It'll be a remote thing, but
Sure,
they
that's fine.
will be getting that set up one-on-one, to have a chance to give you an opportunity to speak to them about, your kind of desires and ideas for it. So we hope to get you some dates, and times here within the next week or two to sign up with them to have that scheduled. And then, we are in the process of establishing a stakeholder committee that will be comprised of about 15 to 20 members of our community, Those would be, business leaders, just other community members that have a vested interest in the community. And so we'll be getting them together. We've reached out to most of them, getting that commitment that they can meet with us and work through, this before we get moving into the bulk of the public engagement portion of the project. So once we get that established, then we can move on. Obviously, with the current state of affairs, we're a little bit restrained now in what we can do in terms of public engagement and meetings. So we have been conducting bi-weekly status update calls with the consultant, and they have been in contact with us several times just over the past week, keeping us updated on their process and what the measures they're taking to keep projects moving with the current state of things. So we're actively working through that, figuring out ways that we can keep this moving in sort of being limited with what we can do out in the public right now. Unfortunately, just the nature of this type of project, it does involve a lot of public engagement. There's only so much we can do with these things remotely and online and over the phone. So this was initially supposed to be wrapped up and approved by the end of the year. I would guess it won't be at this point. We are gonna have to have public meetings. That's just kind of the nature of it. And so we just can't do that right now, and we don't know when we'll be able to. So we are working to do as much as we can right now. So like I said, we will be getting those one-on-one time set up with the commissioners here shortly. We'll be getting that stakeholder group set up. I'm not sure at this point if we'll have some work that they could do initially, but we are continuing to move ahead. We're in constant contact with the consultants and kind of doing what we can at this point. So we'll just continue to keep you updated as we, kind of move through it and have to shift our expectations for what it's going to look like for the time being.
So I have a question. When do we get to see like the logo and brandings scheme, or is that something?
We could probably send that out to you guys so you can see it. It's
curious.
basically just kind of a logo and like a color scheme that they'll be using, but yeah, we could certainly send that out to you guys.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
good to see.
yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yep, we can do that.
One thing that I would like, and I know it just based on what we just talked about in terms of the kind of the restrictions we have as far as bringing people together, would be kind of just a macro schedule, like for March, April, May, just kind of the major things, just so we can get a picture in our minds of the major muscle movements that are gonna be done over the next, well, it may even go into next year now. And it's not something that, that it could be adjusted, but that would help me just,
Okay.
give me a mindset in terms of, the major milestones and generally when we think they're gonna be accomplished.
Yeah, so we'll talk to them. We've got our next update meeting with them next week. When we first started the plan, they gave us a very detailed schedule.
Right.
A multiple page schedule
that.
through the end of the year, and obviously it's gonna kind of be a fluid
Right.
thing for right now, but yeah, I'll talk with them and see if we can see what we can do and just kind of get you a big overview of where we think we're at now and what that might look like.
And on the stakeholder committee, how many folks are we looking to, was there a number that you
We're
had in
looking
mind?
at 15 to 20.
Can
And
we,
so-
and I, no problem with, but I think at some point, is that gonna come to the commission just to take a look at it so we can, not approve, but just, there are certain sectors of the community that I just wanna make sure are representative, and, so.
Yeah,
that-
so
is that-
City Manager Kramer and we worked through
Okay.
those sectors that we wanted
Sure.
to make sure we hit, and so those stakeholders that we have reached out, it's very deliberate in
Sure.
the people that we've approached about it, so.
Okay.
Yeah, once we get, commitments from the people that we've reached out to, then, yeah, I'm sure Paul will be able to reach out to you with
Okay.
the people that we've identified.
Okay.
Great.
Good. Any other questions or comments for Ms. Hurley on this particular agenda item?
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Good update.
Yes.
That
Exciting.
that completes the agenda for the study session, so we're gonna go around and see, Mr. Kramer, do you have anything else?
Yeah, just a few things I thought of after I spoke is, for next week's meeting, as you will look around in this room, we have more than 10 people in this room. Next week's meeting is scheduled to happen in this room, the same setup, but it will be closed to the public. It will be streamed live, and that is within Kansas Open Meetings Act. That's what the county's doing now. So we will have the agenda published as required. We will stream it live. We also will have to not hold or figure out at a later date how to hold any regulated public hearings. Difference between a public meeting and a public hearing. If we have a hearing on a fire damaged structure, you know, an incentive or something like that, then we'll have to figure out how to do that. But for now, we'll that. And then, of course, the following Tuesday is the fifth Tuesday, so we'll have a little time to kind of regroup. And then we'll kind of look at April. Some early thoughts, you know, we could maybe consolidate some of our study sessions, but we'll figure that out as we go forward.
Could we have people come and go out of here? I mean, if you had people that needed to come in and talk, they couldn't come and,
We could maybe look at that.
just to keep this at
Yeah.
10?
We're,
But they could sit out there if there's no more than 10, and they could come in if we needed to
yeah, I
have a
don't know how
staff
that
person come in and talk to
works.
us.
We'll look at the agenda and see if there's anything on there that may require or may necessitate a public comment and maybe make a decision on that. We're also most likely gonna
I was trying to
recommend that we
think
just
more about
read the
staff, too.
proclamations and deliver them rather than ask people to
Okay.
come and accept proclamations.
Sure.
Again, to the public, please stay tuned to our website, our Facebook, our Channel 2, our Twitter, all city media outlets. And the final thing is, please ask us questions. I know there's a lot of questions. Our answer may be, that's not a city function. Please don't take that personally or as us shirking any responsibility. We'll work, I've given numbers to the VA, the DMV, the water department. We're fine doing that. We'll answer anything that we're able to answer. I can't answer any health-related questions. I don't have any health officers that work for the city, but we'll certainly work. But please continue to send us those questions.
Okay. Commissioner Wilson?
Man, I just encourage everyone, let's continue to work together as a community as we're going through this trying time.
Okay. Thank
Together,
you.
we will make it.
Thank you. Commissioner Leonhardt?
No, nothing at this time.
Commissioner Preissner?
Just echoing what we've already said, just thanks to all the city staff, the professionals that work for the city, that, you know, essential functions are still going on, trash pickup, obviously, police and fire are going to be very, very, I don't want to say very, very active, but they're not cutting back any, what you will see on patrols or things like that, and they're very important to our community. Quick question for Mr. Kramer on next week's meeting. If we close it, can we ask that citizens who care to want for citizens' participation, speak about something not on the agenda, could we encourage them to submit the questions or the comment, either you or the city clerk, and those could be read
great
by you,
idea.
not give them to
should
us
always
in advance, but to you or the clerk. I don't know if we'll get any, then you would read them, but wouldn't be proper for us to get them in advance.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have. Thank you,
Okay,
Mr. Mayor.
good. That was a good point. Commissioner Bowder?
I don't have anything in addition, thank you.
The only thing I have is that we had to unfortunately cancel the St. Patrick's Day Parade, which would have been held today, and we did that very reluctantly, but it was the right decision. The city manager and his staff worked very, very hard that day. But I want to give my thanks and appreciation to the committee and Mr. Tim Scanlon. I know Commissioner Bowder is part of that. Are you part of
And
it?
she is
And
too.
Commissioner Leonhard. So please let them know that we're sorry that had to be done, but we didn't really have a choice. And next year, we look forward to, you know, one of the best St. Patrick's Day parades the city has ever experienced. So,
I
but-
agree, we'll come back bigger and
Okay.
better.
Okay,
right?
but thank you for the work, and we couldn't pull it off this year, but it wasn't because of a lack of foresight and great work on behalf of the committee, so thank you. The other thing is, we are gonna have myself with the city manager, Facebook Town Hall on Friday at 10 a.m. and plan for about an hour, and anything else, Mr. Kramer, I need to put out, that's just,
And just to clarify, because I saw a few things, this was not planned as a COVID-19
Right,
Facebook town hall. This was a general issues.
Yes.
We're certainly cognizant of what the big topic is, but it was more
Right.
designed that way. And that's the way that we intend to carry it out on
Sure.
Friday, is to
Right.
talk about all city, what's going on in
Right.
the city. You know,
Facebook town hall, good.
and if they've liked the city's Facebook page, it'll come to their feed, right?
Yep.
When we start at 10:00 on Friday, the 20th of March. But looking forward to that. I know I'll learn a lot, and we'll see how it goes. But any other Any other, yes?
Is it 10 to 11? Is there a certain time?
Yeah,
Or until-
it's 10 to 11. I mean, it can go a little bit
Okay.
longer than that, but generally,
Okay.
yeah, 10 to 11 is when we're scheduling it for,
Okay.
so. But it can go a little bit longer than that. I don't think that'll be a problem.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Since we canceled the meetings in Washington, are you still submitting information to everybody?
We're still submitting our federal legislative delegation, and we've been in touch with everybody. Of course, they're occupied right now,
Sure.
but still hoping to get updates on all of the projects that we would like to happen in the initiative. So as they get back to me with our federal delegation, I'll provide that information back to the
Great.
commission.
Thank
And we
you.
did, the city manager and I were able to have an office call with the new warden at the United States Penitentiary, and that was a good meeting.
Yeah.
Learned a few things, and apparently he's had some experience with standing up other prisons, so he's a good man. I think he's from Tonganoxie, so we had a good conversation, and we'll, when and if we do go, or if we do something, you know, via video teleconference in the future, we'll be sure to support the United States Penitentiary here in Leavenworth. So without any further ado, we'll go ahead and conclude the study session for tonight.